As far as presidents go, who is the first tenacious leader to come to your mind? Well, I've asked several people this question, as well as it has come up in many conversations over the years. Not surprising, most people do tend to blurt out Ulysses S. Grant. While this may be very true, he had genius military skills and superb strategy, although he was a very, very brutal leader. According to some people, they demand that he did not possess any of these characteristics. They claim that he was just plain cruel. Now, despite the problems that he had and the problems that he caused, personally, I do believe that he did several great things for this nation. Many people tend to say that I defend him because he is my blood. Yes, Ulysses S. Grant is my great-grandfather. His popularity increased in the years immediately after his death. At the same time, commentators and scholars portrayed his administration as the most corrupt in the American history. Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th President of the United States of America. He served from March of 1867 to March 1877. Before that, he was the 6th Commanding General of the United States, and he served alongside of Abraham Lincoln. As Commanding General in the Civil War, he had defeated secession and destroyed slavery, which was the cause of secession. Now as President, Grant, during Reconstruction, he had guided the South back to the Union, and by the end of his public life, the Union was more secure than any previous time in the history of our nation. And no one had done more to produce this result than he did. Of course, many knew that Grant struggled with alcoholism throughout the most of his life. But what many did not know is that Lincoln defended him. Congressmen had allegations into him being drunk even on the battlefield. But Lincoln responded that he urged them to discover and let them know what type of whiskey the general preferred. Because if it made fighting generals like Grant, he should get some for distribution. Grant was supposed to be at the theater the night of Lincoln's assassination. Him and his wife had to decline because they were going to see their children. He deeply regretted not being by his side that night and claimed that that was the darkest day of his life. He bitterly, bitterly regretted not being by Lincoln's side. They were great friends. Ulysses prevented Robert E. Lee from being charged with treason after the Civil War. Now, many people may or may not know this. To me, it was very interesting. Mark Twain published his memoirs. He offered a much more lucrative contract with his newly publishing firm. Many people may know this name as well. Charles L. Webster and Company. Of course, Grant took the offer. He would be crazy not to, right? So, later that the book was finished, just a few days before succumbing to cancer in July 1885. The personal memoirs of U.S. Grant hit stores later that year, and he was immediately hailed by Twain. And others as a literary masterpiece. It was also a massive bestseller. Mark Twain wrote it about Ulysses S. Grant. So, you can put two and two together. I believe that I've read some of it. I haven't read all of it. But only a year after the book was published, Twain presented Grant's widow, Julia, with a royalty check of a whopping $200,000. Now, I am very aware of the things that he did his time. They were very ugly, but every person involved in politics are tenacious and corrupt, even to this day. As you can see, Even if you go out and do more research on your own, maybe you want to read his memoirs. Grant did numerous things to help his country despite the terrible things that he did. Something to think about. If you were in his position, how would you have handled things?